Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of my colleagues Sachin and Damien, I'd like to welcome Mr. Rob Jackson and the distinguished board members of the Bolsters Electronics Group to our presentation today. I'm Veronica, and together with my colleagues Sachin and Damien, we make up the analyst team of the consultancy group. Sorry we missed you. So a little over a month ago, somewhere in March, early March to be exact, Mr. Jackson tasked us with providing our solution and recommendations to a question or a problem that he had with regards to making Vickers, one of his suppliers, a distributorship. So we set about it by conducting a strategy and a decision-making workshop. And a few of the objectives of this workshop were to identify the problem at hand, analyze the problem at hand, provide and agree on the definition of what constitutes a dealership and a distributorship, and finally provide a solution and recommendations. So for the benefit of the wider audience of the board members here today, I'd like to provide a brief of the introduction to the problem. So your company, Bolster, distributes to two national distributorships, which are National Electronic, which you had from inception, and Albright Industries, which you partnered with in 2004. Both these distributorships sell your product as their primary product line. In 2007, you added Vickers onto your distributorship. However, you made Vickers a territorial dealership rather than a distributorship. So today we are posed with whether to make Vickers a distributorship or a dealership. And Sachin and Damien will take you through our workshop findings and the recommendations we make to ultimately support this decision.
Thanks, Varu. I'm Sachin and I will analyze the case study and discuss the findings. Also define a distributor who has stocked inventory, who has video system engineering expertise, who has large sales force, and who can provide next business day or the same day delivery. In Bolster terms, a dealer is who can purchase the products as required, who can stock up small inventory, and who can design simple systems. Now let's compare Vickers with two national distributors. If you look at National has got 5 distribution hubs. They got 20 satellite warehouses, 10 sales offices, and around 125 technicians located in 35 locations. If you look at Albright has got design staff, warehouses and sales offices in Montreal, Toronto and Halifax. Comparing these two national distributors, Vickers has very small presence and they are quite limited to Northern Alberta region. Looking at the requirement of the distributor and the requirement of the team, Vickers seems like a very small company and they do not qualify to become a distributor. Let's start with margins. Bolster had around 15% of market share in video surveillance category. It was getting difficult for Bolster to maintain an overall gross margin of 40% due to mature technology and increased competition. Let's look at the margin variations generated from Vickers sales. In 2011, with 75% market share, Vickers sales volume with Bolster was $3.7 million, which generated a margin of $2.5 million for Bolster. If the market share remains same and a distributor discount is given to Vickers, it will bring down the margin for Bolster by $1 million. Even if, let's say the market share is increased to 90% with a distributor discount, there will be a decline of $700,000 margin for Bolster. Which means that giving distributor discount to Vickers will affect Bolster margins significantly. Let's move on to customer relationship management. In just 5 years, Vickers sales volume with Bolster had grown 10 times with a market share of 75%. Vickers outperformed in all the areas, including sales, team capability, locally stocked inventory, exceptional customer service, and they managed to set them up as a preferred local supplier. Bolster believed that Vickers' success is commendable. However, other two distributors were generating 90% of the margin for Bolster. Granting the distributorship to Vickers will adversely affect Bolster's partner relationship with national distributors, and also granting the distributorship to Vickers or better discounts to vehicle will set a precedent for the other dealers as well, and they'll go to the national distributors and ask for more discounts. Let's talk about national distributors. Though vehicle sales volume appreciated significantly in last 5 years, it was still less than 10% of national distributors. Let us see the margin comparison. In 2011, with 75% of market share, Bolsters' margin was $2.5 million. In 2012, if a distributor discount is given to vehicles with the same 75% market share, the Bolster margin would go down to $1.48 million, and with 90% market share, it will go down to $1.78 million. Margin generated from vehicles in best case scenario, which is 90% of market share, is still 80% lower than the other national distributors. In 2004, when a second distributor, which is Albright, was added, National expressed their disagreement with the move, and adding vehicles as a distributor has high probability to cause disagreement with other national distributors, especially the national one, and the cost of losing one of the distributors or downgrading Bolster product to a secondary product line is way too high comparing to vehicles. Let's talk about channel conflict. The code of conduct seems to be missing or never established between these distributors and the dealer. In 2004, when Albright was added, National expressed their disagreement with this move. Bolster indicated to National that Albright was to focus on new business, not to take business from National. By and large, the distributors somehow managed not to compete against each other, but there was no clear demarcation in the operating area. The National and vehicles were also competing in the same northern Alberta region. Let's take a look on Bolster marketing channels. We'll just focus on level 1 and level 2. So Bolster is directly selling the products to vehicles, and vehicle was selling it to customers. Bolster was selling the products to Albright and National as the national distributors, and they were selling the products to dealers or direct customers. Now, if we look at the conflict, there can be a horizontal conflict where a conflict can arise between vehicles and National, where they are operating in the same northern Alberta region. A conflict can arise between Albright and National, who are operating in the Quebec region. So that's it from me. Thank you. Now I will pass it over to Damien, who will cover the solutions and recommendations.
Thanks, Sachin. As mentioned, my name's Damien, and I'll be looking at the proposed solutions and recommendations. Upon initial review and looking at the case and just the financials, it seemed like a simple decision whether to allow Vickers to become a distributor or for them to remain as a dealer. We did look at other factors, and we did a workshop. We considered several factors, not only the bottom line, but also the supplier relationship and the supply chain management strategy as a whole. From this workshop, we ran several scenarios, and we came up with a third option. This third option was to allow Vickers to become a territorial dealer. How we came about this? Within the workshop, we produced the probability matrix with the 3 decisions that we came up with. Within this matrix, we have the 3 actions: the margin, if Vickers were to get 90% of the market share; the risk of a negative reaction from the other distributors, Nationals and Albright. Negative reaction being having the product go from a primary product line to a secondary product line, which would have significant financial implications. And then also we looked at the probability of it actually occurring. Now, if you were to make Vickers a distributor, this actually has a negative effect on your margins. If they were to get to 90%, it's a negative effect of $1.2 million. The risk of a negative reaction from Nationals is rather high. This is because in terms of the area that they are occupying, Nationals and Vickers are in the same territory. Albright would relatively be low because Albright's on the east coast and they're not geographically in the same area. The probability of a negative reaction from Nationals is high. Secondly, we looked at keeping Vickers a dealer. If you did nothing and Vickers still got to 90%, this would have a positive influence of $525,000. Reaction from the other distributors would be low and low because things have remained the same, but the probability of this actually happening would be low in terms of Vickers, and you may get a negative reaction from them and go from primary to a secondary line product. The third option, and our recommendation, would be to allow them to become a territorial dealer. This would have target-based performance discounts. From the framework that we're just going to show and recommend, this would have a positive influence of 180,000. Risk of negative reaction would be low and low from the other two distributors, and the probability of this being taken up would be high. What does this look like? As a territorial dealer, there would be performance-based incentives. At the moment, they're currently getting a 38% discount with 75% of the market share. If they were to then get to 80%, it would offer them 39. Then if they got to 85, then 90, you would then offer them 40 and 41%. This is still lower than the dealer distributor discount, but it is an improvement on the dealership one. For this to happen, you would need to establish a distributor agreement. At the moment, there's no distributor agreement between territorial dealers and the distributors. This would have to be in place. This would commercially have a framework around it, would also give a code of conduct and also give the rules of how they interact within the same area. In addition to this, we had a look at the product line. The product line is rather narrow. You're currently in the video surveillance category. You specialise in the niche market of extreme environment cameras, but the depth of your product line in its applications is quite deep. So what we would recommend in the video surveillance, you also have alarm systems, controlled access systems and security systems. We would say use your R&D to develop integration with these other systems. So not broaden your product line, but add-ons and integration is where you should focus. So in terms of the decision, so in terms of the three options of remaining as a dealer, allowing them to become a distributor, or the option 3, a territorial dealership, in terms of all the factors, not just the bottom lines, but also supplier relationship and your change management strategy, we would recommend going for option 3. So with all the information that you've received today, are there any questions? Yes.